Thank you to Birch Living for sponsoring this video, the second in our 2025 Three Rivers Challenge series. We are nearly halfway through the first month of the Pantry Challenge, and I am just now getting my second video out to you of our meals, and that is for very good reason. I was busy having a baby last week. Our little baby Abigail is now 1 week old, and that made it challenging to get not only a video out, but to also document the meals that we were eating over the last week. So in this video, I'm going to bring you some of the meals that I was making before I gave birth to Abby, one that I was actually making while in labor, and then there'll be some sporadic meals that I was able to document here and there after her birth. So why don't we go ahead and get started? We're starting with a simple fruit cobbler for breakfast. I put 3 cups of all-purpose flour into my mixing bowl along with 2 cups of sugar. And then I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of baking powder. Then we added a little bit of salt, and I'm going to mix all of those dry ingredients together before we begin to add the wet ingredients. I need about 3 cups total of liquid. I am choosing to use orange juice on this particular day. We're going to get that all stirred together, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of almond extract. When I make certain berry cobblers, I just prefer the taste of almond extract to vanilla extract. The berries we're using are some homegrown blackberries from last year's garden, and they were still frozen, so I'm having to break them up a little bit with my whisk here. We're going to get those all broken up and mixed into our batter, and then this is what we're going to use for our fruit cobbler. I'm just greasing the bottom of my baking dish here and using a little avocado oil for that. We're going to add all of our batter here, get it all smoothed out, and this is going to go into the oven on 350 degrees for about 40 minutes or so. In the meantime, I'm getting all of my eggs cracked. I always try to serve these bready, sweet breakfasts like a fruit cobbler and kind of balance it with some protein. So for our family, that means about 18 eggs, and I'm just going to pepper them and add a little bit of salt before we mix them up. Our chickens are kind of on a laying break now, so we're using up the last of the eggs that we have in the fridge here this week, and we're going to be getting out water glassed eggs later on. We're kind of using both. Okay, we got some tallow that's melting down in the bottom of that pan, adding our scrambled eggs there, and the key to nonstick cast iron eggs is just making sure that your pan is really hot before you add your fat in, and then just stirring them kind of as little as possible, and then it works out great. Your cast iron is nonstick. So here are our scrambled eggs, and then as soon as our fruit cobbler was done, we pulled that out of the oven to cool down, and this is always a hit. It's such an easy breakfast. I really enjoy making this for the family, and they absolutely loved it. The little ones, of course, want ketchup on their eggs. I know that grosses a lot of people out, but my kids get it from me. I actually like ketchup on my scrambled eggs too. And then it's been very cold here lately, so of course we're all huddled around the wood stove, eating our breakfast, filling up our bellies before the day moves on. You guys saw I'm still pregnant at this point with my big belly. You're going to notice that my belly will be shrinking and changing as this video goes on. Here are my 2 big boys' plates, and Adam was still home on his winter break, and he was eating with us. You're going to see our portions are going to change as he goes back to work. My last Pantry Challenge video was all about using up the leftovers from our New Year's Eve snack spread, and these graham crackers are just kind of the remnants of that. I had gotten some graham crackers for the little ones, and we had these opened packages left over, so I decided that for this evening's dinner, I was going to crumble up all of those opened packages of graham crackers to make some kind of dessert, and I'm really winging this. This is a recipe that I kind of made up. I had some cherries in the fridge that Adam had bought in the hopes that I could make a cherry tart for New Year's Eve, and it just never happened. So I need to use up those cherries as well. And I was trying to decide on a dessert that would use a graham cracker crust with cherries. There are some dairy-based desserts called a cherry delight that uses kind of a cream cheese filling in the middle. And since, we can't have dairy, if you're new here, it's because my oldest son has an anaphylactic dairy allergy. So I decided we're going to do a dairy-free version of cherry delight. So to finish off my graham cracker crust, I just need to add 1 cup of oil. I'm using avocado oil here. And we're just going to mix that oil with all of those graham cracker crumbs. You may have been wondering why I didn't put those graham crackers in the blender, and it's because I had a baby sleeping that I did not want to wake up. So I did it the hard way by just trying to crush all of those by hand. I'm going to get my baking dish really well greased here so that these graham cracker crumbs don't stick to the bottom. And we're going to then just pour all of those graham crackers with the oil mixture into the bottom of the pan and let that be crushed down into a crust. So I'm going to take the spoon and kind of spread those graham crackers out as evenly as possible, and then we're going to press them down as hard as we can, just so that they form a really nice solid crust for the rest of our dessert. The next thing I need to do is make my dairy-free filling. So I'm going to make kind of a powdered sugar icing. I'm using palm fruit shortening here. And then we're just going to pour some powdered sugar. I'm just kind of measuring with my heart. It's usually about equal parts of fat to powdered sugar. Add a little bit of vanilla to that. And then I'm going to get out my hand mixer here, and we're just going to whip that around until it becomes nice and light and fluffy. And it's kind of making an icing of sorts. And this is the best I could come up with what I currently have in my pantry in order to make a dairy-free filling for this dessert. I thought about making a coconut whipped cream, and if Adam weren't home on this day, I would do that, but he does not prefer the taste of coconut. It kind of upsets his stomach, so I try to avoid making coconut-based desserts when he is home. And this frosting will work. The most challenging part was getting the icing over the top of the graham cracker crumbs without making a huge mess of the crumbs. So I just kind of scooped it out in little dollops and then tried to spread it out as much as I could. And then I knew that I was going to eventually add some hot cherry pie filling over the top of it that was going to kind of melt this icing and spread it out the rest of the way and kind of fill in the holes. So I wasn't too worried about making it perfectly spread at this point. Now I need to pit all of these cherries. I have a cherry pitter in with my summer food preservation supplies, but it always feels like more work to dig that out and use it and then clean it up when I'm doing a small amount of cherries like this. It's just as easy to do it this way using a straw, like a metal straw, or I have a funnel here with an end that pokes those cherry pits out pretty easily. And now I never get rid of my cherry pits. You're gonna see me put those in a container, and we're gonna put those in the fridge until I use up the rest of these cherries. And I will definitely be canning a batch of cherry pit jelly from those pits. There's a lot of fruit clinging to the pits that I don't want to go to waste, and so I will show you when I make that cherry pit jelly here in a couple weeks. I'm gonna put them in the fridge, and then we'll end up freezing them when I do the rest of the cherry pits until I'm ready to make the jelly. Now I'm going to turn these cherries into a cherry pie filling. I have cherry pie filling canned downstairs, but since I have the cherries fresh that I'm trying to use up, I'm just going to show you how I make this. So it was 2 cups of water, just maybe a half a cup of sugar, and maybe a fourth of a cup of arrowroot powder that I put into the bottom of my pot here. We're going to get that on the stove and bring it to a boil. Before that, we're going to add our cherries here and stir those around. I am going to eventually get out my immersion blender and chop those cherries up a little into smaller pieces so you don't get a huge bite of cherry as you're eating the dessert. But you can see that that pie goo is already starting to thicken up in there. As it comes to a boil, it will begin to thicken into the texture of what you expect out of a pie filling. Now I'm going to pour this over the top of that frosting while it's still hot, not boiling hot. I let it cool down just a little bit, but I want it a little bit hot so it'll melt that frosting just slightly so that it'll spread out a little bit over the top of the graham cracker crust. Just going to kind of take my spoon here, spread that out as I mentioned, and then we're going to let this cool down and go into the fridge. And it sat in the fridge for a couple of hours before I served this to the family. This is what it looked like coming directly out of the fridge. We just had a very simple spaghetti dinner that night, nothing fancy because I was extremely tired. But as we cut it up, this is what it looked like. As I mentioned, I just kind of made this up as I was going, and the children and Adam absolutely love this. So if I ever have leftover graham crackers again, I will be doing something similar to this, whether I have cherries or another type of fruit in the fridge or the freezer. This made a really simple dessert, used up those graham crackers before they went stale, and everybody was very satisfied. I am still pregnant at this point of the timeline, but that is all going to change here soon. Yep, we're just enjoying these last meals of Adam's break before he heads back to work. Now, before I share more meals, I would like to share about the sponsor of this video, Birch Living. We have had our Birch mattress for nearly 2 months now, and we are absolutely loving it. I chose a Birch mattress for my daughter's bedroom for many reasons. As you guys know, if you're a regular on this channel, I spend a lot of time and effort making sure that the food I feed my children is extremely healthy, homegrown, home canned, free of nasty preservatives and chemicals. That's really important to me in taking care of my family. And I figure it's just as important to make sure that the surface that my children spend over half of their day either sleeping or hanging out on is just as good for their bodies. Birch Living mattresses are crafted with responsibly sourced materials such as organic cotton, organic wool, and 100% natural latex. They're free from polyurethane foams, which can cause harmful off-gassing, and they're also constructed without fiberglass. Most other companies use fiberglass as a flame retardant, and that can be detrimental to your health. Those flame retardants can actually show up in your bloodstream. Every Birch mattress comes with 2 breathable pillows, and also a 100-night sleep trial along with a 25-year warranty. The best part is that Birch delivers right to your door for free within the US, and as you can see, they are really easy to set up. It took Adam no time at all. It can get extremely hot in our upstairs bedrooms, both in the summer since we don't have central air, and in the winter as the heat from the wood stove rises up to the bedrooms upstairs. But the organic materials in our Birch mattress help regulate body temperature for a really comfortable night of sleep. Now, we ordered the Birch Luxe mattress. It's a premium upgrade to their original well-loved Birch Natural mattress. We love it, and I think you would too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Birch Living. Now is a great time to commit to sleeping better this year. Check out birchliving.com 3 Rivers to get 25% off your mattress plus 2 free pillows. This offer expires on January 22nd. So make sure you check that out. And now we're going to get back to some of the meals that I made throughout the rest of the week leading up to the baby's birth. We're now at the Sunday before the baby was born, and I always sit down on Sunday and make a detailed meal plan, especially during the Pantry Challenge, but all the time. Just as a busy mother, it's important to go into it with a plan. And then I take that meal plan and I make a list of everything that I need to get from the cellar and from my freezer and our overflow fridges in order to complete the plan for the week. It's kind of like grocery shopping. And then the next step is to take that meal plan and put my meals in my planner for each day. I'm just getting organized for the week to making my meals as easy and convenient as possible. So here were the boxes of items. We went out to the freezer, we went down to the cellar, and my 2 big boys helped me carry these upstairs. And then once we get them upstairs, I put everything away in the kitchen, get the meat thawing in the fridge, and I need to get out my food inventory and check everything off so that my inventory stay accurate. And I will link a video in the description that shows you how I set up this food inventory. It's crucial during a pantry challenge to make sure you know exactly what you still have in your pantry and freezers so that you can do your meal planning based on what you have available. It's now Monday morning and I am in labor. and I grabbed these two muffin mixes. They were just something that I put together in a video for you guys for postpartum meals. It's super easy. I even have the freeze-dried eggs in there, so all I have to do is add some liquid ingredients and I'll have some quick muffins. So in between contractions, I'm adding liquid. I added 2 cups of orange juice and 1 cup of avocado oil. I added a little bit of vanilla extract, and then I pulled some raspberries out of the freezer and added those to the mix. I think at this point contractions were about 6 minutes apart, so I would just mix things together, take a little break when I'd have a contraction, and my goal was just to get this in the oven. Adam was doing some cleaning for me, and he was setting up all of our birth supplies and doing this huge honey-do list to get ready for the birth. And this was easy enough for me to then just pour all that batter into a greased pan, get it in the oven, and let it bake on 350 degrees for, it took about maybe 30 to 40 minutes. And this is what it looked like when it was all done. Now, I do not have any footage of anyone eating this because we ended up delivering the baby rather quickly. Shortly after I took this video of Adam cracking the eggs, I ended up calling my midwife, and I will do a whole video for you guys of the birth story. But long story short, she's here. It's a little girl. She's healthy. We had, it was kind of a crazy, chaotic birth, but it was a beautiful experience, and we're just grateful to have her here and home, and everybody is doing great. So as you're going to see from here on out, my big belly is gone, and it's replaced by a squishy postpartum belly. Obviously, the kids and Adam were handling most of the meals during the first few days after the birth. I would step in and just do some quick and easy things. On this day, I just decided to throw a few pork roasts into the crock pot. I grabbed some homegrown onions and put those on top. We just had a few mushrooms randomly in the fridge. I'm going to pour some balsamic vinegar on top of the roast. I'm also going to add some thyme and parsley and salt and pepper. And the thing was, on Sunday night, I had put all of this meat in the fridge to thaw, and then I delivered the baby the next day, and we just had all this meat sitting there. So throughout the week, I'm just using it up at various times. I figured I needed to get this roast in the crock pot. I added some garlic. There, I'm sprinkling the salt. We do have some storage carrots still in the fridge, so I went ahead and chopped those up and put them on top. And then, of course, I'm going to wash these potatoes and add those to the crock pot and just put it on low. I did this early in the morning, and then just let that cook. And then later on that night, Adam and the kids didn't have to worry about making a dinner, so that was extremely helpful. I'm not doing a lot of cooking at this point. I am letting other people take care of me. We've had some friends and family bring meals, which has been a lovely blessing. But I am, every now and then, I love feeding my family, so I am getting up and making meals as I have the energy and the ability to do. And so these are the meals that I'm going to be documenting for you. Oatmeal is always a super easy breakfast for me to make for the family. It takes very little time to get it ready in the morning. The most difficult part is rolling the oats. We get our oat groats in bulk from Azure Standard, and I have this oat roller that rolls them out into a traditional rolled oat or an old-fashioned oat that you would get at the grocery store. And rolling them fresh, the reason why we do this is just it preserves more of the nutrients. They definitely have a nutty, earthy flavor when you do that. So I roll them the night before, and then we soak them. I'm also soaking some split peas on this evening because we're going to have split pea soup the next day for lunch. So we just fill our pots and our bowls with water, and you want to add a little bit of an acid. I'm adding some homemade apple cider vinegar. Just put a splash of that into the water and let that sit overnight. The next morning, I just drain that soaking water out, and then we're going to add some new liquid to cook this up. So our oats need a little bit of fat, and since we can't add dairy or butter, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 cans of some store-bought coconut cream. that has some good healthy fat and some coconut flavor. Adam ran into work quickly on this morning, so he's not eating the coconut, and whenever he's not there, I'll put coconut in for the kids. I added just about 1.5 cups of sugar, and I have my lovely little helper here who is stirring. If you're wondering, Hannah is doing wonderfully. We've had a little bit of adjustment. Obviously, every time you have a toddler, there's an adjustment when a new baby comes home, but she is doing great, and she's so good with baby Abby. She's helping me peel some hard-boiled eggs that I had in the fridge, and we're just going to peel those so that we have a little bit of protein to offer with the carbohydrates of the oatmeal. Using up another container of our homegrown preserved blackberries from last summer, and we're going to make a blackberry and coconut cream oatmeal. It's going to be delicious, but I always do like to add some kind of protein. I don't have a lot of eggs to spare right now, so I'm adding some collagen peptides for some protein. I always like to put protein in the oatmeal mix so the kids aren't getting pure starch and sugar. And this is what that oatmeal looked like after it cooked down. This is always a hit with the kids. They love oatmeal. I can never go wrong. And I like to think that it's rather healthy with the soaking and being freshly rolled and adding all of that extra protein. So the kids enjoyed their hard-boiled eggs and their oatmeal. And then we can move on to lunch with those soaked split peas that I mentioned. So my kids might be strange. They actually love split pea soup. It's one of their favorite meals. So I soaked quite a few split peas on this day, hoping that I would have some leftovers that the kids could eat on a day when I'm tired and kind of wanted to rest with the baby. We had the leftovers from the roast that I had made the night before. So I just decided to chop up some of those potatoes, a little bit of the roast, some of the carrots, and then I scooped out all of the drippings and broth that I could find from that roast and put them into the pot. It's a great thing about split pea soup. If I have leftover meat or potatoes or vegetables like this, I'll just put them in the pot with the soup. If I don't, I have some canned soup bases that are down in the pantry, like a ham soup base that I'll use in place of the leftovers. And so we need a little extra liquid in here. So I am going to add a total of 1 quart of home canned ham broth. And then I'll also add a little extra water just to kind of fill up those jars and get all of the extra fat and flavor that was left in those jars. We're going to stir that around and then begin to add some extra seasonings. So we like the flavor of bay leaves and parsley in our split pea soup. Of course, we're going to add some salt and some pepper. And then the great thing about making a soup like this, if I get it put together early enough in the day, and if the fire is going really hot and strong out in the dining room, I'll just throw my pot on a trivet on top of the wood stove, and it will simmer throughout the morning and will be ready by lunchtime. I just have to remember, I have kids that I remind every time you walk by that, can you give it a stir for me so that nothing sticks on the bottom. And then by lunchtime, we have a delicious soup that is ready to go. And I just put the pot out, and the kids could scoop their bowls out and come in and eat as needed while I was back in the bedroom resting with my little nursling. The thing about making things like soup or oatmeal is that there are always leftovers. So let me show you one of my favorite things to do with leftover oatmeal. So I'm going to start by putting some all-purpose flour in the bottom of my mixing bowl here. I did 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of sugar, and I'm going to do, I think I did 3 teaspoons of baking powder. And I'm going to mix that together. And we are going to add some eggs. This will help kind of bind it together. I'm going to turn this into like an oatmeal bake, kind of like an oatmeal cake. And I am digging into my water glassed eggs. If you don't know what that is, it's a way to preserve eggs during the spring and summer when your chickens are laying in abundance. It preserves the eggs in a lime water solution, and it works out wonderfully. I've been doing this for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, and it's a really great way to get us through the winter months when my chickens and ducks are taking an egg laying break. So I just grabbed 6 eggs for this particular recipe. When you're cracking water glassed eggs, you just kind of want to make sure you do a sniff test on each one. That's how you'll know that the eggs are bad, is they'll smell bad. And all of these were good. So we added those, and then I scooped in approximately 3 cups or so of that cooked leftover oatmeal. Now, obviously, the texture of this between the dry ingredients and that sticky cooked oatmeal, it's going to require a little extra liquid to be added to it. So I'm just going to add a little at first. I added 2 cups of orange juice. We're going to start stirring it, and then you're just going to go by sight and texture. You want it to be kind of a cake batter texture, and I saw that it's still a little bit dry. So I ended up adding another cup of water to this, or you could add milk, whatever liquid that you would want. It's just a way to get all of that cooked oatmeal incorporated into the dry ingredients. And like I said, you're looking for almost a cake batter texture. You're going to grease up your baking dish and pour that batter in and then bake it on 350 degrees. It took about 60 minutes. You want to make sure you don't undercook it or that oatmeal will be really gooey and hard to cut into. So we did about 60 minutes and it was thoroughly cooked and dried out. And this always just turns out wonderful. It's such a great way to use up that leftover oatmeal. We serve it with some protein, of course, just scrambled up some eggs. And you can see how the inside of that isn't gooey anymore. It is dry. And this was a hit. The kids ate it all up, and it feels good to know that that oatmeal that was sitting in the fridge won't go to waste, because what was left over wasn't enough for another full meal, a breakfast for all of the kids, but it was enough for a breakfast if I added some other ingredients and turned it into something else. So I know that wasn't a ton of meals to bring you here in this second video of the Three Rivers Challenge, but as you can imagine, I spent most of the week resting up and just kind of being pampered and letting Adam and the kids bring meals to me, and documenting all of that just felt like a little too much. I know you guys understand and want me to be resting as much as possible. So we truly are, and we're just enjoying baby Abigail. She's such a blessing. Just everybody is smitten, completely in love with her. I'm hoping to bring you guys a birth story video here very shortly. We're just waiting on some footage because we actually have footage of the birth, and I don't want to spoil that story for you, so I won't explain why we have video footage of that, but there is a reason, and we'll bring that to you in our birth story video. Until then, I hope you guys have a great week, friends. Bye.